Hey, hi everybody. Um, Welcome to our second meeting this week. This is a special meeting to talk about a revised budget. And I'm wondering, now that I'm calling the meeting to order and establishing that we have 4 out of the 5 of us, and Kip and Stella and Diana Eden on this call, would someone be willing to make a motion to approve our brief agenda today?
I move to approve the April 11th special meeting agenda for 2025.
Thanks so much, Vicky. Do I have a second?
Second.
Awesome. Peg, any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, none opposed. All right, so then moving on to the revised fiscal year 26 budget proposal. Does everybody have that up? And Kip or Stella, do you want to walk us through the $80,000 change?
Let me just set it up first and just say that yesterday at the department directors meeting, we were informed or told again that because of property tax reform primarily, the county is facing a $25 million budget shortfall for FY26. That's how much they're losing with the change in property tax. They've worked pretty hard. They've come up with $10 million in some capital projects and other things that have made up 10 million of that. And so we're sitting at $15 million deficit right now. And using Jody's, the county administrator's words, the departments need to come back and look for some deep cuts to help make up the rest of that $15 million deficit. So that's why we're here today. The library's budget is primarily wages, benefits, salaries, which we aren't being asked to touch. And the commissioners have said they want to at least preserve the integrity of the new pay system that they've put into place. So they're going to at least honor the 2.5% cost of living increase, it seems. The merit increase is up for discussion. I believe Mo Murphy is looking at what a percentage that's currently set at 3.5%, which is shown in this document. And she's going to figure out how much a reduction in each 0.5% makes and how much savings. So they may take it down to 3%, or they may take it down to 0%, depending on how much savings. They're also going to be trying to figure out what the FY25 reversion will look like, which is they're going to estimate how much money is going to be unspent at the end of this fiscal year, and can roll that into FY26 to make up for some of the loss as well. So we don't know what those numbers will look like yet. I believe we'll find out on Monday, but it's not likely all of that's going to add up to $15 million. So again, that's why we're here to look at deep cuts. The library's budget, as I started to say, is primarily wages and salaries and materials and sort of the ongoing operational costs of the building. So there's not a lot of wiggle room in our budget. We've gone through, and I'll let Stella talk about some of the specific areas because she made better notes than I did. But initially, we've come up with 79,000 and change, just under 80,000. And once we go through what some of these minor ones are, I will have another point for discussion that might make that amount bigger.
And right now, can you remind me, because I don't have on the top of my head, what the total FY 26 budget is? Like, what is 80,000? What percent is 80?
Oh, a
1,000.
tiny amount. Our budget,
Yeah,
the budget request prior to any cuts is just under 5.2 million.
okay, yeah. But they have specifically advised that they're not asking for reduction in, what's it called, reduction in workforce? Or
Correct. That they've not gone there.
okay. So it does sound like you've targeted the categories that fall outside of that.
Jody specifically said, look at professional services and capital requests. And so I'll let Stella talk about professional services specifically, which actually our bigger account, I guess, for that cut might have been dues and subscriptions instead of professional services.
Okay.
I have one other question. They didn't give us a target. It just was an open, go
It's
back to your drawing board.
yeah.
Okay,
And didn't say to be as austere as possible or as ruthless as possible, but where you think you can find some. They didn't say cut a service and things like that yet.
Okay.
So. Okay, Stella.
Okay. Um, thank you. So one of the areas Kip and I discussed was our telecommunications under utilities. We did not make any changes there yesterday in this proposed budget to you. But in the back of our minds, we do provide the hotspots, which are extremely useful to the community. But we could potentially ask the Friends and Foundation if they could cover some of that cost because they can be considered an enhancement. So that is something on the back burner that might buy us a few more dollars, but we haven't touched that line item yet.
And I would just
There-
add that the foundation used to cover the cost of some of our hotspots. And because hotspots have sort of become a normalized expectation of a library service, we moved them into operations and took it off of the foundation. But it could go back. Maybe we say a library should have 20 and the foundation, an extra 10 would be an enhancement or something.
Mhm. What line item is the hotspot? I'm not seeing that.
That would
It's
be
under-
oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
It's under the broad categories utilities. And then hotspots, that cost falls under telephone, which is 200-000.
I see that. Okay.
Under that same broad strokes of utilities expenses, another line item we did not change is bank charges. However, we have been continually told by the county that, I'll give you an example. So somebody pays for their passport application service with the library with a credit card. We, the library, absorb the cost of that credit card transaction. So that is under your credit card fees and expenses, bank charges. We have been told that theoretically we should be charging that cost to the person who is using the credit card. However, being that this request to cut funding just happened yesterday evening, Kip and I have not been able to go to our credit card company and find out how we would actually do that. We haven't been able to talk to other county entities about how they do that with their transactions. So that is another area where potentially we could, shave several $1,000s off per year for fiscal 26. And then I'm gonna drop down to training and travel expenses, which is another, yep.
Just
Sorry,
before you move on, one of the things we could do there to to eliminate that credit card cost is just be upfront that people have to have a check or cash to do that, that's how it's done. Like in Boise, you have to bring a check in or cash. That's the only option for renewals or even new passports.
Mm.
That's one thing
They,
in place.
that we definitely are open to looking at options. Credit cards are also used, for example, when people are doing public printing, they may charge their printing to a credit card. Another use is also somebody's paying for a lost or damaged item, but there again, that could be, we take check or cash only, but so there are other areas where people use credit cards here in the library. But we can certainly entertain.
Well, it's also pretty common that those credit card fees are passed on to the consumer. I know that happens in the art and craft world, and it also happens in several restaurants already. So in some of the stores, in fact, some places are giving discounts if people bring in cash instead of cards. So
It's actually
Community,
a violation of the agreement that we sign with the credit card companies. For anybody signs a contract to accept credit cards, they say it's a violation of the agreement if you charge the fee back. But everybody violates the contract.
Community Foundation does not accept donations with a credit card unless you agree to have the fee put on it.
Yeah.
that's right.
So,
Any other questions on the bank charges? Okay, I'm gonna move down to the subcategory training and travel expenses. That's item 320-000. That we did drop that down from an initial proposal of 42,000 to 30,000. And where we were able to garner some of that savings is this is an area where, aside from just sending folks to conferences, etc., I guess, Kip, maybe do you want to speak to the
Well-
point about no in-state travel only next year?
Yeah, there's already been a directive that we can't use county funds for out-of-state travel next year. And Stella, Angela, and I are on boards of national organizations and are expected to be at national conferences. So the average cost of an out-of-state conference has been around $4,000. And so we've shifted that over and would make a request to the foundation to cover that, which they have done in the past. The libraries, well, any county department's training budget was relatively small until the last couple of years when they wanted to make it more robust, and they would make it a percentage of your salary costs. And so that's where we've been the last couple of years, and next year we've taken it down to not be that anymore.
We'll still encourage people to get training, but it
Yes.
might be more kind of webinars, or also more encouraging of folks to really try and get like a grant through the McMurray Foundation, which is a state granting funding entity. So hopefully others will still be able to, to do out-of-state travel. The next subcategory, dues and subscriptions, 330-000. This is a really broad category, because this also includes all of the library software, of which we have a lot that we use on a daily basis, including right now we're using Zoom, which is just a tool that we, have to work by and need. Kip and I really studied this area. We were able to drop it down a little bit. And within the dues and subscriptions, that also includes staff memberships to things like the American Library Association, the Public Library Association, Wyoming Library Association. Currently, we have a broad group of folks who the library has covered their memberships. But Kip and I determined that we're probably gonna have to cut that down a little bit. We might still need to have a little more conversation on that, but we won't be able to provide subscriptions for as many folks as we have in the past. And
Also, since we established what we needed for that amount, ALA has restructured their membership dues, so their dues have gone down, which is shocking. So we have accounted for some of that too.
And for example, there was one organization that kept yesterday determined that he doesn't need to really be a member of. I've also considered that, you know, if there's bigger cuts that need to happen, I would be personally willing to pay for my own ALA membership, etc. In terms of why we're really limited in how much we can cut out of there is, as I said, a good portion of this is also our software. Potentially, there might be some software that we could potentially eliminate if we get to that point. So it could be that we could potentially come back to this category and shave a little bit more off of it, but hopefully we won't need to do that.
One question. Could we potentially use Google Meet instead of Zoom? It is part of your Chrome membership that's already an expense. And you don't pay extra, and they work on the Zoom platform.
That would require some investigation. I don't know what the download capability of record, if you're able to record, if you can
You are?
download the recordings, all of that. So
You are. The state required.
we also don't have a membership with Google. We don't use any Google products.
Okay, you don't.
No, it's only the state
And
and
all of.
public health.
Okay, yeah, state and public health has
Yeah,
a
we don't.
Google email. Okay, that's, I mean, we use Chrome all the time, right?
I don't, but some
No.
of us do. We
Okay,
do have Teams, and
that's Microsoft,
that's
yeah.
that might be a possibility. So,
Okay.
well, we could
Yeah,
investigate.
we could, they have
But we're also talking a few $100s
Oh,
when
fine,
it comes to using Zoom too. So
okay.
Stella, just a clarification, when you were talking about the media cuts and digital, does that include like Hulu and Wild and some of those things?
So our subscriptions do include like Wild, but things like Hulu, those are under our book and materials budgets.
Okay.
Which we did not touch those at this point.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I
but-
wondered, yeah, I guess I wondered if the IMNLS, that cut comes through, which it looks like they are moving that direction. Indirectly, will we be saving some money? I mean, it's not that we want to, but would we be saving money from those subscriptions to Wild, et cetera? The ones that was outlined in the letter?
so I think Kip could speak a little bit more to that, but basically
the
within
only
our,
sorry, Stella.
good.
Oh, the only, we pay a fee for our annual Wild fees, which only supports the cost of the catalog and that expense. So things like the research databases, LinkedIn Learning, things like that, that's completely covered by the cost of IMLS funds pay for that. So if those funds go away, those services go away.
Yeah,
Um,
hopefully not.
or
And-
our fee increases that we have to pay. The research databases are currently funded at 50% with state funds and 50% IMLS funds. So either libraries are going to be asked to pick up that extra 50% or they go away and research databases become the local library's responsibility. And as we're seeing here, the property tax reform is affecting Teton County. There are other counties where 50% loss of funds is going to be detrimental to what they can do. And we have some options available to us. We have mills available. We could increase property tax. Every other county is maxed out. So it's going to be interesting.
And I, just as an aside, I was on a video meeting this morning with other Wyoming library folks, and one of them was saying that they've been told they have to do a 10% across the board. So different counties are handling the property tax in different ways, Kip was mentioning, so. With the wild though, when we did our forecasting to prepare the initial fiscal 26 budget, we were looking at, we did budget for the maximum wild expense, so I think we'll still be okay there.
Good.
Yeah. So Kip was mentioning that the request was for different county departments to look at their professional services expense. We took a very little bit off of our professional services. One of our biggest amounts that we spend there monthly is our mail service, mail pickup and delivery. And that would be really a huge, if we were to eliminate that service, then that's going to be super impactful on staff to have to go to the post office daily, twice a day, wait in line to pick up our packages, because just so everybody knows, our packages consist of not just things like from Amazon, but in terms of the US mail, all of our interlibrary loans that come back and forth every day. So the trade-off there would be a big labor cost, plus staff having to drive over to the post office twice a day. So we decided that is not a service we can cut.
Is it possible that that could be considered an enhancement?
I don't
think
I
so,
mean,
because
mail
it's-
service is
Yeah.
an essential service, so I
Well,
don't know.
yeah, but having it delivered as opposed to being picked up in person is maybe an enhancement of the picked up in person.
So the way it operates right now is we have a regular person who's with our local vendor, Professional Express. And
Ah.
they go every morning and pick up our mail. And then they come back around noon. Well, they go every morning, they pick up our mail, they deliver our mail to us every morning before around 8 o'clock. And then they come back at noon and they pick up any outgoing mail we have. Also, if we have any outgoing packages, also when they've picked up our packages, they deliver our packages here. So that's how that's working right now.
What
It
is
could
the
be a
cost of
conversation
that?
to have with the foundation though, Vicky.
Yeah.
If
What's
it-
the
No, I just-
cost of that a year?
I'm sorry?
What's the cost of that a year?
I'm sorry, I don't have the yearly
Okay.
cost. I can definitely get that to you.
Just roughly?
I mean, it's probably close to what's in that amount right
Yeah.
now. Must
Okay.
be about that 9,000.
Let's see.
About
I'm just-
9,000. Okay, thank you.
I don't think there's much else in the
I was gonna try and pull up our voucher from yesterday. Just to give you an idea of the monthly,
I'm thinking that that's something maybe Friends would be willing to help us with, or Key Club at the high school. You guys have some pretty significant volunteer
so
options, but maybe we
There-
can't have kids do
we're-
that.
we actually are limited in that because you're talking about materials that belong to other libraries in addition to our materials, as well as US mail. So
We have to kind of be licensed, don't you?
yeah. So the cost we paid yesterday's voucher was $280, and that was for the month of March. And I would say that's pretty average.
Okay, so that's
So maybe
$3,600.
$3,000.
Yeah. And then our professional services, other items in there are our background checks for volunteers. I think that's usually about $30 a month. So, you know, there's not a lot we can cut in that budget there. And then I'm gonna try and speed this up for you all. If we go to buildings and ground expenses as the subcategory. Within that, we have building exterior and grounds maintenance, 450-0000. That is maintenance for both facilities. So that's, you know, the snow plowing, the snow roof, the roof snow removal, that's, any sort of maintenance that needs to happen at either facility. And so we did shave roughly $5,000 off of that. But there again, it's kind of really scary to try and start playing around with that budget. And Rick prepares this budget, Rick Smith, our facilities maintenance coordinator, and he's very detailed in what he tracks of his regular expenses. And so when he gave us his initial proposal amount, I know that Rick is very detailed in how he puts his budget together. So that's why I know we really don't have much wiggle room other than about the 5,000 that we've already taken out and put in today's proposed budget.
Okay.
And then there's one more category, and I know Kip is going to talk a little bit more about this, but if you jump down to the broader category of capital reserves, which is 910-000. So for the past 4 years, we have been every year paying into our capital reserve fund in terms of, it's my understanding that for quite a few years, the capital reserve fund was not being maintained. And we started doing that back when Deb Adams was here as the interim director. So for fiscal 21, she put in that request to start funding the capital reserve funds again. And we have been doing that every year. In order to figure out a place where we could potentially shave some money down, Kip and I yesterday determined that we would change our request for fiscal 26 from 150,000 to 100,000. So that bought us about $50,000 more. But I don't know, Kip, if you want to address this now.
It's as good as any. I feel like in the language we've been given, we've been asked for deep cuts in the departments. Specifically capital and non-staff related or operating things. So that leaves really our capital reserve fund. And I know other departments are going to be looking at deferred maintenance. We are lucky in that we have a fund of about $2 million right now that will allow us to continue with some of the planned projects that we have in mind. We just won't be adding to it either as much or at all this year or in the next year. And if we want to, I don't think $80,000 looks very significant when it comes to $5.2 million budget. So as much as I would hesitate to not fund capital, I kind of feel like maybe we zero it out this year and hope that next year we can get back on course. And the plan was to up that amount anyway, so maybe next year we up it to a request of 175 or 200,000 annually instead. Because the older the building gets, the more expensive repairs are going to be. But I feel like we have to look like we're doing our part, and $80,000 doesn't seem significant.
Are we allowed to take out loans for building maintenance ever if we have a major capital expense need?
I
You don't know.
I don't think
I mean,
so.
that's what you would do in a house if
Yeah, I
I know
don't know that we have
that kind of
ability
option.
as a government entity. I mean, we're self-insured and all of that, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kip, I mean, when you said that they were asking you to look at capital requests and professional services, it is unique that we can put away, 150 a year into that account. So I appreciate your thought about maybe zeroing it out this year, but I also know that we've been we've just been careful to try to keep that, because we know cost of maintenance always goes up, and
Yeah.
and now we're looking at some real needs. So I am a little bit worried if we zeroed it out for making the argument in a year to come that we need it all back or we need more back. Do you think that there's any risk in completely zeroing it out, just in terms of a precedent it could set?
I mean, I don't know what the amount was that was set aside prior to Deb sort of resurrecting this. There's always been a capital fund, and I don't know how that fund accumulated. So we've always had a different setup than the rest of the county, but I don't know if you at all in designing stuff for the library, Peg, know how the capital may have worked before.
I mean, some kind of capital endowment is always really critical because there will be an emergency and we will need that money, and it's not a lot of money. I think my question, and you're alluding to it, if the library is the only facility in the county that has this, that's pretty unusual and actually a little bit frightening as a taxpayer here, that not all of the county buildings have some kind of maintenance kitty. So I find that really interesting that the library is the only one.
Yeah, it's normally a free-for-all, and there's limited dollars every year, and everybody's competing for that, and it could be a battle royale of sorts.
I think
We don't have to do that.
yeah, I mean, I think a really good overture would say cut 100, but keep 50. And then if there needs to be a second round of cuts and somebody actually says, hey, library, you're unique in this anyway, and that's really extraneous or whatever for this year, then I guess we could cut it all. But I agree with you, like 100 is a deep cut, is deeper than 50.
Yeah.
I'd be reluctant to say zero the whole thing out, because it just makes it look like it's not that important, and it really is, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I know you do.
Also, Kip, clarify, if I remember right, the county can't come in and take our capital reserves.
No,
That, okay,
only the board can expend funds from that.
But the
They're
county
protected.
the county would be responsible for maintenance that we can't cover from an emergency or a disaster or whatever. That's
Yes,
one good thing of being part of the county like this.
yes. They would tell us to spend that money down first, probably,
Yes,
but
probably, but
they wouldn't have to struggle to figure out where they're getting it either.
I'll just say that I have until 3:50 something. I have a client at 4. So I just want to be here to vote if you, as assuming you need me. I mean, 3 people can vote too, but just
I
doing a
mean,
touch.
I agree that there should be something in that. I just want to make sure we also look like a team player.
Oh yeah, yeah, I hear you. I don't know. How do others feel about the amount? What is deep within 150,000?
I was actually thinking what you were thinking, Lisa. We could bump it down to 50
Mhm,
this year.
mhm. I mean, that's deeper than half. It's 2/3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea. So when I do really quick math here, we are right without the bumping the maintenance down. We are at about 8% of our expenses without looking at staffing, correct? An 8% cut, because it's about $1 million and we're at about $80,000. So we're at about 8% of decrease.
No, I actually hadn't done the math yet.
Yeah, I just have to think about
Yeah.
it holistically. And I'm only asking the question because I have been in this situation with my architecture firm at least 4 times since I started it. And this is a really, you guys have done a great job, but what you learn very, very quickly is we actually do run lean here. And
Yeah.
it is, I will say, and I'm sorry, but it's inevitable that staff is the next step. It's inevitable. It's just, you cannot get enough out of expenses because we do run so leanly, which is why I like this idea about the 100,000 coming off that line item that we just talked about. I think you've got to try, but I think we can't just think today. I know we need to vote on a budget today, but this is not going to get easier soon. It's going to get harder. And I think we just, as a group, need to think about that. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
I wouldn't want to be a commissioner. The state has given you, as a property owner, a 50% tax reduction. And
And
as
now
a
they're going to take it.
politician, do you want to come back and say, oh, I'm going to raise your taxes and take that 50% back from you?
That's what my husband said last night.
Mhm.
So I mean, I think they're gonna have to do some of that. I think they're gonna take some of it back from you. But yeah, I don't know, Peg. It may be inevitable. Who knows?
Well, I think this is a really good, thank you for your work. I think it's it's the right step. And at some point you can't, hard expenses, you just can't cut them away and keep a building open. So
No, the building has to be open. We have to have electricity. We have to have water. We have to have
yeah,
internet. We
there's
have to
some
have
things that are
books.
not up for grabs. And so without, closing the building down. So I think you guys have done a really good job here.
Me
And
too.
I also think that $5 million to run our library is pretty lean. I really do.
I'm guessing most libraries around the country would say we are well above the average, or it's not the norm.
Well, not the one that Stan Trachtenberg was talking about yesterday.
Mm.
The in Pittsburgh area. Anyway, what are we gonna do about our upgrade?
The space
For
upgrade?
the spaces,
Probably nothing right now. We're sitting tight.
Gotta put
That's
it
what I
on
mean.
hold.
We're gonna sit tight and put it on hold directly with the UA.
I think there are things we can, small things we can do.
Mhm.
That
Oh,
won't
sure.
cost a whole lot of money. Paint and carpet are still in the capital budget and we do have money for that. So some of those kinds of things can happen. But I wouldn't expect anything big
Good.
until we figure out this whole tax situation and federal funding and everything else.
Do we feel pretty comfortable about being ready to vote on the budget, just knowing that there's also a executive session on the agenda?
That'll take just a second.
Oh, okay, okay.
My gut is it's going to take several rounds, and I think this is a really great step. And I feel comfortable with the information that we have to vote.
I would agree.
Dan,
I'd move forward on this one.
So dropping capital to 50,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
All right. And yeah, and thanks to Stella for identifying where a second round might come from. I think that'll just, I don't know, put us in a better spot if, in case there's a second conversation. So, okay, so do I have a motion then?
I will move to approve the revised fiscal year 26 budget for submission with permission for staff to make minor changes as needed.
Thanks so much. I second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye. And none opposed. All right.
Thanks so much for your
Thank-
work, Kip.
I know, Kip and
thank
Stella,
you.
thank you. I know that this is a heartache of a task.
It's not fun.
Thank you, everyone.
I was there yesterday when this came down and I saw their white faces.
Thank you, for your support, and I'm gonna go ahead and leave so that you all can have your executive session. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you,
thanks.
Stella.
Stella. Okay, if you want to adjourn regular session for,
Sure. I move to adjourn the regular session of this special meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Now, do you stop the recording?
oh, wait a minute. Cancel, I need to pause.
Okay, great. We are back and I forgot what I was supposed to say.
Oh,
we're
no
back.
action was taken.
No action was taken. And so do I have a motion to adjourn the regular session of this special meeting?
So moved.
Vicky, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Peg. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And none opposed. All right, the meeting is adjourned.